is Infants on Thrones.
Listener's Essay.
Welcome back to Infants on Thrones. I'm Glenn Osland, and today we've got a treat for you. So we've got a listener essay from Allison, who writes about what it would be like if she could be a guy for a day. So we talk with Allison. We have a panel discussion where I'm joined by Randy Snyder.
It's derived from a Norse word, which means to actually hit with a blunt object.
And Bob Caswell.
Well, I mean, I just want to be self-aware that it is kind of link bait. I knew that, of course, it's going to piss them off.
And then my wife listened back to the conversation after it was recorded, and she said, I'd like to chime in a little bit here. So you're going to hear from my wife, Krista, not the psychic. And then I also asked my two oldest daughters, Shaylee, who is 17 years old, and Emma, who is almost 14, to weigh in on some of these issues. So it's going to be kind of a fun episode today. It's going to be a little long, but let's start off right now with Allison's essay. Enjoy. Take it away.
Recently, a friend asked me if I were a man for 24 hours, what would I do? Immediately, I thought, sex. Of course. You know you're all thinking it too. But other than experiencing that, from the male perspective, I drew a big blank. What can a man do that I can't do? There's really not that much. And that felt pretty great to realize. Now I know this isn't everyone's experience, so don't get all uppity or pissy at me. This is just me, okay? Most days, I can look at my life and see that things are equal, in my job and in my marriage. So here are the other things I finally came up with to add to my list. Open a jar of pickles all by myself and not feel a huge sense of accomplishment, like it would just be a normal thing. Cool. Reach something up high for someone else. Again, I would try to play it cool. I'd run around a little bit because, well, stuff bounces, and that would be interesting to experience. I'd get in a fist fight and just punch someone in the face. Just a really good right hook. I would feel bad about it. I'd want to be defending someone. I could never punch someone just for no reason. I've wanted to punch someone, but I never have. I know my swing would miss, or it just wouldn't hurt. Then I'd be embarrassed. Now a slap I can do. I've slapped someone 2 times. They were both pretty epic, and I admit I do regret one of them. But it's gotta feel, well, kind of amazing to have the sort of physical power to punch someone and make their face turn purple and they'll start bleeding and maybe I can even knock them out cold. As a woman, I feel very strong emotionally and mentally and intellectually, but my inherent weak upper body strength is a bit of a handicap. Okay, a more serious one. I'd really like to be able to just say what I think to someone and not be thought of as a bitch. Women have to sugarcoat a lot of things. It gets exhausting. I'm terrible at it, so I generally just don't even try. I feel like most men say what they think all the time, and they don't get called names or have a reputation for being mean. I say what I think all the time, and I kind of do have that reputation, at least with some people that don't know me very well. Just not seeing that look of, what a bitch, on someone's face when I say it like it is, I'd want to experience that. Next, I'd write my name in the snow. You know what I'm talking about. Or put out a fire. Okay, both. Writing my name in the snow would also lend itself to experiencing shrinkage. 2 birds, 1 stone. I'd see what it feels like to fall asleep pretty much the minute I lay down. I'd probably need a nap with the kind of day I'm putting myself through anyway. I know this is crazy, but I honestly would want to get punched in the junk. Or kicked. I've always wanted to know what men feel when that happens. It's gotta be bad. You guys really freak out about it. I'd be nervous for that one, but I'd do it for science. I would drink a beer really fast. Some women can do this, and some men can't. I hope I would be the kind of man that could do it if he had to, but would never do it just because he wanted to. So this would have to be the kind of situation where I needed to slam a beer because I was in a hurry, or it could be a friendly gentleman's wager. I'd like to think I had to be coaxed into doing it. I'd like to dig a hole and plant a tree. As a woman, that is something that would take me hours and hours. Again, with the weak upper body strength, maybe I should do CrossFit or something. But as a man, I could dig an awesome hole and plant a tree in probably less than an hour. And hey, now that I think of it, why aren't more men going around just planting trees? Come on, guys. I'd like to know what the difference would feel like between sex as a man and oral sex as a man. The difference is quite drastic for women. Is it that different for a man? Maybe it depends on how good the person is, or if they have like an overbite or a lisp. I don't know. You know what? I'm probably overthinking this, but I still want to know. Now, I haven't really thought about who's going to help me with all this sexy time stuff, but I think it'd be awesome if my husband turned into a woman for the same day. We could just help each other out. Simple. I have to be honest. I'd be a little nervous that sex as a man would be better than as a woman. No, I doubt it. After that, I would sing. Of course, naturally, right? I would probably be singing all day, and I would record it. That'd be so cool to have a much lower voice for a day. I think I would shave my head. Something about that seems very liberating, and as a woman, that look is pretty hard to get away with. You guys take this stuff for granted, you know? Oh yeah. I would attend general priesthood meeting. Men get to do that. Have to do that? Yeah, that's not a get to in my book. Okay, that one's a maybe. Seems kind of lame to do something that boring just because I can. And lastly, I would receive the priesthood. First, I would probably need to repent for punching someone in the face, drinking a beer, and for those of you on the stricter side of the fence, having oral sex. But after that, I think I'd pass that worthiness interview with flying colors. I'd get myself some holy Melchizedek power and just bless the hell out of somebody. Literally, like, I'd want to perform an exorcism and then a baby blessing. I'd get some righteous revelation from my family, become a bishop or a stake president real fast, and just preside over something. I'd go to the temple and do some baptisms. Like, the part where you get to dunk someone else. It'd be nice to not have to be the one to get dunked the whole time. Then I'd do some endowments. Oh, like I could work at the Veil, pulling ladies and gents through there like nobody's business. I'd be all, what is wanted? And try not to laugh at the long, awkward pauses when people forget to say that big, long thing, health to the bones, whatever it is. Oh, and I could say the prayer in the temple, too. And after that, maybe I could interview some people about their worthiness and, like, deem them worthy or unworthy. I could even do stuff like count tithing. Okay, maybe that'd be kind of boring, too. But I could extend callings to people and meet with people who want to confess all kinds of stuff to me. So then I can let them go to the temple, where I can do all that cool stuff I just mentioned. Did I leave anything out? It might be hard to get all of it done in one day. But with God and the holy power of the priesthood, anything's possible. So, obviously this list points out that men and women are different. And in my personal opinion, that's good. I like these differences. But I don't think they're valuable to everyone, and they don't need to be. But personally, I want to be different than men. In all their deep-voiced, hairy-bodied, strong, hard, decisive glory, I find these differences intriguing. All of the mannerisms, all of the quirks. I love those things that make men men. But men who aren't manly or hairy or strong or have deep voices, they can have the priesthood too. Men who can't do any of the things on my list can have the priesthood. So, what makes a man a man? Well, according to the church, it really ends up being about anatomy. It's not about all those personal characteristics that help us try to define gender in a social way. As a woman, I don't have the priesthood because I don't have a penis. Now that I've realized this, the abstract concept of priesthood has taken on a certain symbol. Now when I hear that word priesthood, I just see a giant schmuck. The member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Wants to do, because I thought, Bob, it would be kind of interesting to do a little follow-up on the Mormon cred stuff. And, Allison could could talk about her response to it, and you could talk a little bit about some of the responses that you've had, because I know you've been engaged pretty actively on different forums and Facebook and on our website and stuff, and you're concocting a version 2.
I am. It's like a software release or something. I don't know why, because I don't know that anyone cares other than me. But yeah, there was plenty of feedback, and I think some of it was valid. A lot of it wasn't, in my opinion. It's easy for me to say that, though.
Bob, the thing that I kept thinking of, and I said this on the website, I think I made a comment. I don't know if you saw it, but I kept thinking of during your Mormon cred episode that there's this NoFX song called
the punk rock one?
Punk guy. Yeah, punk rock guy.
I saw that.
Then it's just like this competition of, he's more punk than me, and like you're more Mormon than me. And that's why I think so many people wanted to comment on it, because it's like, hey, you can't say that you're more Mormon than me. I'm the Mormonist of all. And so people get a little bit sensitive about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, they do. And that's part of the reason why it's fun, and also
to poke them with the stick, and you're the stick.
Well, I mean, I just want to be self-aware that it is kind of link bait. I knew that it had a decent chance of getting some buzz and engagement and discussion going, because for somebody to come down from heaven and say, hey, I'm going to decree a scale through which, we're going to determine how much credibility you have on this huge, massive part of your life that's, generally speaking, we're talking to exes, that's been sucked away and has left a void, and you're super upset about it. And by the way, you only really went through half of it. Did I mention that? And of course it's going to piss them off. But I tried to, that's not like my sole intention or anything, but I knew that that was going to be an outcome. But I think it's healthy, though. I think it's good for people to engage and have that discussion with me and with others, to understand that as hard as it is for them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how hard it was or how complete it was as compared to a lot of other people. And I say in some of the comments, this isn't to measure the damage or the pain or suffering that it's caused to you as a Mormon or an ex-Mormon who went through this, because that's not my place to determine, because everybody has that on a different level based on many factors. But that's how a lot of people interpreted it, which maybe I didn't think that they would get that far into it, but I can understand why now, looking back.
Well, it also seems to me that you weren't really saying, and I don't know, I could have misread what you were doing, but you weren't really saying that this is a measure of how Mormon you were, but it's more how much of the whole end-to-end Mormon experience you have experienced, and that's what gives you the cred to comment on certain things or not. But it's not really how Mormon you were.
I'm glad you brought it up, Glenn, and it wasn't me, because I've already said it 17 times, but nobody seems to quite get that this is more about the experience and less about the depth in terms of knowledge or doctrine. Or
I think the sticking point, it would have been for me if I hadn't had the full child, from birth to my mid-30s experience, is that you said that, the whole basis of this whole thing was, how much can you complain? How credible is your complaining? and if you're not Mormon enough, go sit in the corner. Nobody wants to hear it.
But everybody likes to bitch, so you can't really. I don't know.
Exactly, and Bob's telling them they can't bitch.
Well, it's just how credible is your bitching.
Yeah. But I thought, Bob, in your podcast, I thought you were going to take it to how credible is the church when they try to make comments or have commentary or write essays on things that they don't really have experience with, like racism or, I don't know, being honest. I don't know, just things like, I thought you were going to take honest? It there. Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. I kind of want to like flesh that out a little bit more with you offline, because that could be another direction I was thinking, is like just aggregating all the results and seeing, is it that most people have the full experience? It would be interesting just to see, like, you know, how far along you are in terms of the average when you leave, because it seems like a lot of people experience the full thing. Like the ones that experienced the full end to end, when they complained, they actually were comfortable in their spot, like, oh yeah, this is a lot of fun, it's awesome. And then the people who scored midway were like, grumble, there's something's not right with the scale.
I got a 20, and that's pretty bad. I think you should edit that out, because now I feel like I can't even talk to you guys.
Oh. Yeah, I was just going to say, Glenn, I thought we had an understanding that only people that were 50 or above would ever come on the show, because, you know. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I know. Can I just quote Pollyanna from the blog? She starts her comment by saying, I just took the survey and you all can suck my dick.
Yeah. You can quote, I just
Lord Voldemort.
Yeah.
She called you Lord Voldemort, man.
Yeah. She's like my favorite commenter so far, because she like wants to kick me in the nuts at the same time as, you know, she uses winky faces and smiley faces. So she's not like, you know, off her rocker.
She's having fun.
Yeah, and I thought it was fascinating where people would confuse the cred scale flaws with the church's own flaws. So I got a lot of like, hey, I can see you're trying not to be sexist, but you really are. And I'm like, actually, that would be the church that's sexist, not so much me. It's not, you know, if anything, I overcompensated on the church's behalf if I said too much, or if I skewed it too much more to give women an equal chance.
Men have way more credibility in the church, way more. So the survey is perfect.
That's how the church functions, right? Like that by default. That's how it is. I mean, that's not to say that, again, women who leave the church don't have the same level of pain or even more pain. You know,
they have more pain because they're more mind fucked than the men are. They're told the one way that you can live, and it's inculcated all, especially throughout young women's, that your role in this life is to become worthy to find your knight in shining armor with the priesthood. So they get so much more mind fucked than guys do.
Potentially, I don't know. I feel like it's the whole concept of quantifying mind fuckness is between the sexes is like, it's just different, but it's equally valid, both perspectives. There's no, I wouldn't want to say women are mind fucked more than men unequivocally, because I don't know that we even know how to know that.
Sounds like we need another scale.
Yeah.
The mind fuck scale. The Mormon mind fuck.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue into.
All right.
No person can experience both.
Yeah. So
sexes, right?
So, Allison, you wrote an essay for us.
I did.
Give us a little bit of background, your experience with Mormonism.
Well, I was a convert, kind of as a teenager, and I sort of left behind like my way of life, my lifestyle that I had as a teenager, as much as a teenager has a lifestyle. And I got like all new friends, and I did all of a sudden all Mormon-y things, right? And then I got married, and I had babies, and your basic ex-Mormon story. I learned the truth and decided to leave after about 13 years in the church. So, that's basically my background. My background in it is not super interesting. But the reason that I wrote the essay about this is because ever since I left the church, I kind of had like this little festering, like you go through phases, right? When you leave, you go through like the oversharing phase and the you want to do everything crazy phase, like you want to do all the stuff you weren't allowed to do, and then you have like an angry phase. And I had this like anger about the inequality in the church, and I felt like if I could write about it, then maybe it would help me get over it a little bit. And I think that it did. So, you know, I had this friend ask me, like, what would I do if I were a man for a day? And totally not related to Mormonism. But when I thought about it, I just really thought this totally could relate to Mormonism, because almost, well, maybe not all the things I thought of, but quite a lot of the things I thought of for the essay, I wouldn't have said those things as a Mormon. I would have thought them, but I wouldn't have, I don't think, talked about them. Because it's just not something that you talk about. Like, it's silly to think that you could be a man in the first place, because, you know, you have your role, and your role is as a woman, and so that's divine, and why would you even think about being a man, you know? So that's one. And then two is, you know, like all the sex stuff.
So did you join early enough that you felt in your teens a discrepancy between the way that the young men organization, the opportunities that they had, you know, the scouting, high adventure things that they did, and what the young women did? Did you see that at a younger teenage age?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the boys were, you know, going on camping trips and learning all kinds of awesome stuff, and girls, we were making cookies, and we were getting little laminated bookmarks that said, you know, plan your future so you don't regret your past. And meaning, and you know, it was always in conjunction of get married in the temple, that lesson. Like, it was very
plan your future. What, like learn dating tactics? And I mean, it's all about getting married.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, and just seeing men in leadership roles, constantly seeing men in leadership roles, and seeing almost no women in leadership roles. That made a pretty big impression on me, too, when I did investigate the church, and then also when I was in the church, I felt like I was always answering to men, and I didn't have any like horrible experiences like you hear about with women who are, you know, they have to deal with just awful bishops who say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing. I didn't have any of that. I had good experiences, but it didn't feel equal at the same time.
Did you ever have a bishop in a personal interview get into like explicit sexual details or anything like that, or?
Like we're going to do right now?
I did confess masturbation to a stake counselor.
Really?
And that
unprovoked?
Yes. Yes, after I was married.
Oh.
That's still way too much information.
Wow.
But,
well, okay, wow. Okay. Play by play. I
felt really guilty about it because we had a lesson in Relief Society, and this woman had to get up and tell us this. And I, as a convert, was like, I had never heard this before. I was like, wait, are you serious?
This is
that's
wrong?
Like, that's a no-no?
Oh, wow.
And so I just
that
felt
right there
terrible.
that right there gives away their lack of Mormon cred.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. But I felt terrible, and I talked to my husband about it, and I'm like, I really think I feel so guilty, like I need to confess this. And he just thought, that's crazy. You do not. He kind of told me, like, if that's what you feel that you need to do, but I just think that that's your personal business. And I couldn't get over it. So I did talk to him, and it wasn't. It actually did make me feel better. And it wasn't weird. It didn't get like too personal or anything. He was sweating bullets. His face got really red, and
yeah.
You freaked the hell out of him. A married woman confessing to what is he supposed to do with that? There's like no handbook of instruction on married woman confessing masturbation. That's like a left field. He was just like confused. He was probably just didn't know what to do with it.
He didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So did you stop?
No.
Did you carry this guilt with you, or did you get over it by confessing, and then gradually it just didn't mean as much to you, or did you feel like you were putting a blot on your soul every time that happened?
I felt kind of like, so it helped for a while. I felt better for a while, and then I would do it again because I'm a human.
Oops, I did it again. I played with...
People do that.
But not every day.
Well, not every day. Okay, Seinfeld. No.
Thank you. You got the reference.
Well, I'm good with references. No, I think that, well, yeah. I mean, we can get back to the implications of that and probably what that means in terms of women and, do most women masturbate who are married? And I think it just depends on your personal desire level, maybe, or your personal libido. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, I guess.
But how did he give you guidance? Because he either told you stop doing it, or I'm going to take, don't take the sacrament, or, I mean, he's not just going to give you a pass, or did he give you a pass and it was just like he wanted to pretend like it never happened?
I think it was a little bit he wanted to pretend it didn't happen. But then he also said, he said, well, it gets difficult, like sometimes when you're in the shower and you're thinking about it. And I was thinking, not once have I ever done this in the shower.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny that he was relating it to something that he'd obviously done.
Right.
He
was confessing to you.
His secret place. Yeah. Yeah. So he was just kind of like, when you get these thoughts, and it's difficult, but just try to remember the covenants you've made and just try to, you might want to talk to your bishop. He kind of pawned me off on the bishop, to be honest. And he's like, and the bishop can help you. And so don't be too hard on yourself. And I was like, okay.
But here's the thing about the covenants that you've made, because when you're in the temple and you make that chastity covenant, it's that you won't have sexual relations except between you and your, legal, lawfully wedded spouse, something like that, right? So
between you and you, though.
Yeah, you're not going outside of that. You're still part of it. Like, I used to play those mental gymnastics when I'd have to justify my behavior. I'm like, am I really? It's not the same thing, is it?
It honestly was one of my, confessing that was one of my lowest moments. I have to be honest. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but I felt like my husband was exactly right. This is not something that is anybody's business.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was made to feel badly about it was it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Well, I have a question. You went through Young Women's a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the fact that you didn't know it was wrong is because, from my understanding, and this is hearsay, is that they don't ever in Young Women's talk about masturbation, but in Young Men's it's like the 3 M's of Priesthood General Conference are like mission, masturbation, and I can't remember the third one, but masturbation.
We all have a problem with that.
The third one, but go on a mission, masturbation, and there's a third one. Anyway,
misogyny.
Money.
Yeah, right.
But that's
I didn't have that experience.
That's a message
Randy.
that was. Well, I did.
Yeah.
No, they never talked about it with the young women.
Okay.
We were
that
always.
Was my question.
No.
What do you mean you didn't have it, Glenn? You didn't have, priesthood session was always like little factories, and there was all these euphemisms that the general authorities would use. It was in every priesthood session.
If there were euphemisms, they were going right over my head because, I didn't know about it until I was like 17. I've talked about this before. I just
It wasn't, they would use terms like self gratification.
Yeah,
I mean,
or like self abuse or things like that. I don't know. I just wasn't paying attention. I was interested in what are the mysteries of the universe. Come on, tell me the mysteries of the universe. I don't know this stuff. I want to know what's in the Book of Abraham.
Your head was in the clouds.
Yeah, not in my pants.
Right. Well, anyway, back to Allison's essay. So, how did you get to Oh, you said you had a friend who asked you this hypothetical of like if you were a man for a day. Did the whole church side of it like pop into your head first, or did that come second? I'm just curious.
That was after. That was way after. Because first, immediately, doesn't everybody think sex? I mean, that's.
Well, you can say that, but you know, I would have to disguise it and say something else to be more non stereotypical as a male.
Well, I'm a female and I say that. My friend who asked me was a female and that's what she said. I just think that that's super intriguing. It's something that nobody can ever know. Like, even if you get a sex change, you still can't. We will never ever know how it's different.
Yeah, when I was 14, I may have thought that, you know, like I'll stand in front of the mirror and play with my boobs all day. You know, I probably would have thought something like that. But like now,
but you're way too mature now.
Or I don't know what it is. I would be afraid that it would mean that I was gay.
Why are you afraid of that?
If I wanted to know what it was like to have sex with a man, even if I'm hypothetically thinking that I'm a woman, I wouldn't like even go there. Like the thought of a guy having sex with me, even if I was a woman, it just is so distasteful. I don't even want to entertain it.
Gotcha. I can see that. That's kind of the response that my husband gave me. You can do
another George Costanza Seinfeld reference here if you want to, Randy, and say, I think it moved.
Oh, jeez.
I did once have a massage from a man, and my sense was like, okay, I was a member of Massage Envy, which is really kind of a crappy massage enterprise, and they said, okay, you're going to be with Marcus, you know, whatever his name was, and I didn't want to look like a homophobe,
not Raymond,
so I'm like, okay. So I went, and I sensed that he was more uncomfortable than even I was, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm never doing that again. I was going to always have female massage therapists.
So I was just going to say, I think there's something interesting about societal roles here, because for some reason guys get all like homophobic and weirded out at this notion, but then
so you're telling me totally I'm not alone.
No, you're not.
Okay.
It's the same reason why, you know, when a threesome comes up on an HBO show and it is two girls and a guy, you know, it's like, you're like, oh, that's cool, whatever. And then it's two guys and a girl and you're like, oh, this is weird. And it shouldn't be. It doesn't matter.
Penis.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, that's not the right formula. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why is it like that, you know, girls imagining these things and entertaining, you know, threesome with another girl and a dude is like wired to be totally normal in my head, and then I see two dudes and a girl and it's like I have to, you know, justify the normality of it by comparison. It doesn't make any sense, but there's just this weird thing where I've already over-explained it. I don't know if it makes sense.
Do you think that men are more worried about being gay or perceived gay than women are?
It's not just that. It's not just that, because men have less general curiosity of what it would be like to kiss another man. But I've been to lots of parties where there's lots of drinking, and you know, these aren't swinger parties, but like when girls get drunk, they tend to get more curious about kissing other girls, but you never see the guys breaking out and kissing each other.
See, this whole conversation is going like I didn't even see it going this direction with my essay, because I talked to some guy friends about it, and they're like, no, I wouldn't want to be a girl because according to your ideas that I get, you know, my ideas that I gave them, they're like, we have superpowers. Why would I want to give those up? You know, like,
that's
you're
bullshit.
strong. You can do all these things.
I wouldn't say that we're stronger. I think that we have privilege, just like being white is a privilege in society.
There's a line from Orange is the New Black where they're talking about the transvestite.
I had a tranny camped out in my hallway yelling about her hormones.
Why would anyone ever give up being a man? It's like winning the lottery and giving the ticket back.
That's pretty much what my guy friend said. Why would you give that up? The only thing you can do different, like if a man turns a woman, right? You can have sex, see what that's like. You can play with your boobs. You could probably like get some free stuff. You could get free drinks. You could maybe, I don't know how far you could take that, but
you can have sex with whomever you wanted pretty easily.
Yeah, you could, pretty easily, right? And then you could. What else are you going to do? You can't have a baby in a day. Like you could try to get pregnant. You wouldn't even know you were pregnant. Everything else takes all this time.
I think that would be the last experience I would want to have if I was a woman. Like you said, you wouldn't mind being. You would want to be kicked in the junk to see how it feels. Well, bravo for you.
I want to know what that's like.
Like to me, if I was a woman, I wouldn't want it to be anywhere near my period. Maybe like right after would be okay. But I mean,
and the horror if you're unprepared and you're worried about bleeding through your pants or skirt. Oh my God, that would be horrible.
Well, let's just assume you get to pick your day. I'm pretty sure that Allison wouldn't want to be a man after the man that she embodied had masturbated 6 times, and her 24 hours was up. So there are assumptions we can put in place.
If you do that? Does it hurt? I don't understand why.
What? It's just like you're not going
to. You just don't have much of a drive.
Yeah, after you masturbate 6 times, you're not going to be like at. It's going to be like not a good representation of what it really feels like. Let's just put it that way. That's not a good 24 hours for you.
You could experience what it's like to have multiple orgasms. You're telling me that you're not curious about that.
No, I am. But here's the difference. See, Allison, when you are curious about it, it's totally fine because for whatever reason, that's a natural, inquisitive way to approach this hypothetical. When a guy is curious about it, they have to feed you shit like, oh, why would I want to do that when I've won the genetic library? And it's like, no, dipshit, it's for a day. It's to experience something new. It has nothing to do with like, the end result of the rest of your life. Think it through. And the only reason they're feeding you that line of shit is because they don't want to come across as a pervert. And women don't have to worry about the pervert card nearly as much as men when they do the hypothetical.
Okay, so Allison, is it intrinsic in this thought experiment? Okay, so if I'm a girl for a day, then I am imbued with all the things that would make me a girl, which includes wanting to get fucked by a guy, right? So.
Okay, but first of all, wait, back up. Wait.
If I'm just my own brain.
No, wait. You might need to include this in your podcast about the word fuck. But here's the thing. I don't like that because that's not how I think of it. I don't think about it in using that word. That's like somebody's taking something from you and you're not experiencing it together. So that's the only time that I'm not cool with that word is when it's in that context. I'm sorry. I just thought it would be interesting to give you my perspective on that. But yes.
I'm glad you did.
On.
You should have been on the one that we recorded last week.
Yeah, well,
To be fair to Allison, the word fuck is a Norse word, or it's derived from a Norse. It's derived from a Norse word that means to.
Here we go.
Cliff Clavin.
Which means to actually hit with a blunt object, to be attacked and hit. So that is a fair point. So I'm going to change it. Would I be imbued with the desire to have sex with a male, or is it just the same brain inside a female body that I possess now?
I think you would have all the desires. You'd probably be so in my mind, I was thinking I would become my ideal man. So I'd become sensitive but strong, and I'd become all those things. So if you become a woman, you become your ideal woman, and you'd have the same desire that a woman would have, in my mind.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, then that changes the whole thought experiment. And Glenn, you need to grow up, and get over your homophobic tendencies.
Well, I don't think it's homophobic tendencies. I mean, honestly, I feel like my ability to get to know women as a people, as a person, was really retarded as result of growing up Mormon for some reason. I mean, I don't want to blame the church on it, because I've got my own things with it. But so when Allison said that, what I thought was, I can't even comprehend what that would be like to have a female brain in my body. I don't know. I don't know if I can't really explain it without sounding like a total douchebag. But I recognize that douchiness in myself, and I don't really like it.
I think it's good you recognize that, because I talk with a lot of ex-Mormon men who have that douchiness and they don't recognize it. Yeah. Like they'll speak with other men and they'll ask them, what do you do, or they'll have like real conversations with other men, and then they turn to a woman and they're like, so you have kids, and they don't even know how to talk to women.
Yeah, it's like
outside of
like any form of interest that I show, I'm terrified it'll be misinterpreted as like some kind of sexual interest or something like that. And I think it's because of all the fear-based stuff that was put in me earlier on. But
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I think I have an example of that, actually. When I was still active but young, newlywed, we were living in Provo, in a Provo ward, and somebody had to come. So the context was, I was also the HOA president of this little community, and this woman wanted to come complain about a neighbor, and so she came to the door, and my wife was gone, and I'm like, oh, sure, come on in, let's talk about it, let me see what I can do. And she's like, no, I can't come inside. I'm like, what? Why not? And she's like, no, it just wouldn't be, because... And like, as soon as it took me a second, but then I clicked into my Mormon mode and I was like, oh, right, because we're going to have sex on the couch. That's the only outcome. I forgot.
Because you have a penis and she has a vagina, and so it's just not going to be okay.
Exactly.
Well, there's a famous anecdote that Spencer Kimball tells, and he tells it like he is this model of virtue in this story. And he's driving home in pouring rain, and he sees Sister So-and-so trying her best to carry these wet bags of, this back in the days of brown bags that are probably going to break, these wet bags of groceries to her apartment. And he said, some people might think that the right thing to do was to pick her up and give her a ride home. But I knew, the implications of even being seen in the same car with Sister So-and-so would put impure thoughts in other people's minds. And I drove past her, and that was the righteous thing to do. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you're a dick. You are a dick.
Yeah. I remember my mom telling me this, because they would have these study groups and stuff with other couples, and how dangerous it was when you get to become friends with couples, because if you're ever alone with one of the opposite sex spouses, that's when the devil has power. You don't ever even want to put yourself in that situation, so you always want to make sure that there's somebody else present. And those messages are pretty insidious.
Well, they are, because they're a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, Glenn, I know exactly what you're talking about the whole unwinding of what it is to interact with women once you leave the church, or once you become like your own person that doesn't have those thoughts embedded in you. Because the reason it's a self-fulfilling prophecy is because after you hear all these messages of being alone with other women, or be careful with other married couples that are around your same age, and make sure that, nothing happens that's the wrong thing that could be interpreted this way or the other. And all of a sudden I'm like attracted to every fucking woman around me. I don't know what just happened, but
it's the forbidden fruit, man.
If you just wouldn't have said anything, then I would be just living a normal dude life. But the fact that every third thing about my young newlywed marriage is to stay away from other young newlywed people is just now you got me thinking.
See all the interesting tangents that your essay brings up for us, Allison?
I do see that. And before we started recording, Bob and I were talking about...
Oh, no, that was recorded.
Oh, that was recorded.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So if there's anything that we need... If there's anything we need, it's there.
Well, just how men talk about sex amongst other men as Mormons and how women talk about sex amongst other women as Mormons, I think is really interesting because, the subject has come up with me and my friends when I was a Mormon, but it was always like, okay, some of the Mormon women that I would talk about sex with, I knew oral sex for them was like taboo. They didn't do it. Their husbands were like, no, it's not okay because the prophet said in 1981 or whenever it was that you can't do that. And so they didn't do it. And then other of my friends were like, I feel really bad for you guys that you can't do that because that's like a huge deal to not be able to do that. And so the conversations were really interesting. And like in terms of women and who's able to have orgasms and who can't, and the shockingly high percentage of Mormon women, I think, are not having orgasms.
Yeah.
And like, if you were a man, men wouldn't put up with that. You would figure something out.
Yeah.
If you're not having one,
a male orgasm's, vital to making children. So obviously men don't have a problem with the orgasm.
It's pretty
thing,
straightforward too.
But like nobody, and this came up in the For Strength of the Youth podcast, is that nobody talks to them about it when they're young, and then they go straight from their dad's house to their husband's house, and their husband hasn't been trained to talk about it, and they're not supposed to talk about it. It's all utilitarian sex, missionary style, two pump chump. And the girl, if there's communication, she could say, well, I need to be warmed up a little bit. I need, and then, like you said, some women might even be completely ignorant of the whole existence of a female orgasm because it's not required to have children for the female to have an orgasm.
Yeah, and there are a lot of women who don't masturbate, or if they grew up Mormon, they thought that's bad, and so they don't even know their own bodies at all.
Isn't the female orgasm also considered dangerous?
Certainly was during the Victorian era.
I mean, like a slippery slope kind of thing. Like you do not want to awaken the desire in women, because then they're going to go and eat all of the fruit off the trees like Eve did.
Is this like a serious thing that you've heard, or are you just like?
I'm asking the question. No, it seems to me that there is a fear in certain groups, and so I'm asking you, Allison, if you encountered this in your discussions with women about sex, that not only do they not know certain things, but there's this kind of oppressive fear of exploring it, because what if, well, maybe it's even an anger. If they know that they're missing out on an orgasm, maybe they'll be angry about it and angry at God for doing this. Why is it so easy for my husband to do it, but I can't? And they don't want to go down that path, so they don't even talk about it. They don't even think about it. They just push it out of their mind. Or maybe there's a fear that it'll ignite this fire in them, and they'll just go around and they'll want to sleep with every guy that they see because they can have an orgasm, and so they repress it for that reason. I'm asking if that's a thing.
I never encountered that personally, but I never really talked that in depth about it. Mostly the sense that I got was, from women that didn't have them, like, I don't have them, but it's fine. It's not a big deal.
It's no big deal. I plant flowers. It's like, what?
But
no,
then
let's
the
talk
thing
about
is,
this.
it's like, no, I try, and here's the funny thing is, like, I have always had them, and it's fantastic. And once you do, you're like, well, why would you ever not?
Right.
Like, you're not going to put up with that. It's a vital part of your relationship with your spouse, I feel. And I would try to tell them, like, well, have you tried this? Or could you do that? Or maybe, and it was like, oh, no. Yeah. We're not going to try that. Like, it's fine.
Wow. So
I would
Allison,
be pretty pissed if I was never having them. I have to be honest, but I knew what it was like. So I don't know if the women that I talked to, they had never ever experienced it, or they were, I don't know.
And don't even have the the freedom, the personal freedom to allow themselves to learn about their own body and to masturbate and to make that happen, because they've grown up all the time hearing that that's wrong and that's evil, and you do that, you won't have the spirit with you, and you let the natural,
or not even just on their own,
over.
but like exploring that with their husband.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even, that wasn't even on the table. Like,
and if you can't explore your own body as a woman, and you marry a Mormon guy that's completely ignorant to the clitoris, or the clitoris, I'm sorry, he's not going to find out on his own, and the only way he's going to find out is if she can teach him. But they cut that off with the masturbation being a sin. And there's if there's a fair amount of Mormon couples where the wife is satisfied and gets orgasms regularly, I'd love to know how that happened, how that came about.
Yeah.
Other than she just gets orgasms really easily.
I was just going to ask Allison if you don't mind sharing these conversations you'd have with other women. Were they like one-on-one or group settings or like sleepovers, or what's the deal? Like what kind of because I can't speak for Glenn and Randy, but in my experience, talking about this kind of stuff with guys was like I had maybe one or two really close friends where I couldn't even get very far, and it would still feel like I'm talking about it in a huge way, and then I would never talk about it in a large group setting, right. And I'd always feel uncomfortable if somebody thought that they were cool and they wanted to come in and be like, "Hey, let's talk about tough stuff. I'm gonna thump my chest and talk about sex," and I always thought those were just like douchebags, and then I'd never want to be their friend again. So I was rarely around those types of men, but I wonder how it is with women.
Was it with close personal friends?
Yeah, they were close friends.
But like in a group setting, or just one-on-one in hushed tones, or how?
Usually in a group setting, and then when it came out that like half of these women were not having orgasms, then I would go in hushed tones, like pull them aside, like, "Hey, you should try this," and then it was like, "Oh no," But it was never a chest pumping, like some whatever you call it. It was never bragging, because you don't want to. You feel terrible. You find out your friends aren't fulfilled in their sex lives, and you don't want to like shove it in their face that yours is awesome. It's not nice.
Yeah. Did this ever come up with either of you, Randy or Glenn? Like, did you ever have these conversations with other dudes
on the mission? Yeah, like when I was in the MTC.
Oh, but that's
I'm wondering if young women don't get together like guys do around the Tree of Life. But, when we, like all throughout my mission, not every companion, because some companions didn't have any experience. But there were some missionaries out there that were very proud of the fact that they had an active sex life, and whether it was just like they were serial heavy petters or they actually did the deed. Everyone knew in the mission who the guys who had the robust sex life before they quote unquote repented and went on their mission. And so when we get, the first experience was the four of us stuck in that tiny little concrete dorm in the MTC, and we're supposed to go to bed at 10:30. Like, sure, we all got in bed at 10:30, but once one person brought up a story of an exploit, then it fed itself, and we were all talking about the sex not the sex we had, but all the experiences we had with girls.
Yeah, my experience was much more like yours, Bob. Like I had one or two close friends that I could confide in and talk to about stuff, but it never came up in like group settings of a lot of guys talking about it that I was in. And if it did, I probably would have felt the same aversion to the chest thumping sort of braggadocio stuff.
Because I know what Randy's talking about. That would happen to me sometimes on my mission, and it was like my first of course, it's my first time living away from home, because before my mission, I only went to school for a year, and I was living at home while I did that. So to be stuck in a tiny room where people are doing that chest thumping and bragging about their previous sex life, I just was like, let me out. I don't want to be here. I'm on a mission. What is going on?
Right.
This is crazy.
But after getting married, and then some of this continued on at BYU for me a little bit, much to a lesser extent, because we were just so crammed to get forced together on a mission for so much time with each other. But once I got married and was like, fully in family wards and stuff like that, nobody ever talked about their sex life with their wife ever in any way.
Yep.
So we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the sex part of Allison's essay. What about the priesthood part?
Surprise.
And of course there was that nice imagery that you put at the end there with the member of the church. I thought that was very clever. But you talk about like Melchizedek power, and I remember elders' quorums where people would get kind of riled up as to whether priesthood was a power or an authority, and like splitting hairs between the difference of the. Did you guys ever experience that? And then I kind of also want to know from you, Allison, like what was your perception of priesthood? Like, did you think it was like magic power kind of stuff, or what was that?
I definitely thought it was a power, because it's spoken of as a power by the prophets, old and new. It's in the scriptures. I mean, there's all kinds of quotes. It's rarely referred to as priesthood authority, from my memory.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't have anything to back that up right now, but it's a power that is from God. And so, yeah, and I never heard anybody splitting hairs about that kind of thing.
Well, it really is, because like as a woman, right, so your kid gets really sick. You are powerless to heal that kid. You need to either call your home teacher if your husband's out of town, or get your husband to do it. You need a man to come in and use his magic powers to heal your kid from their 102 fever. And then you give them Tylenol.
And even if you think it's an authority and not a power, women still don't have that authority. So you're still shafted, right? Sorry, that's a pun.
Nice. That was good.
You still don't have either one. So to me, it doesn't matter if you think of it as a power or an authority. It has a purpose, and women don't have that
at all. And the Relief Society president doesn't even have it. Like, she has to answer the bishop in every way, including like money for anything. Like,
but then there's the token like temple thing, though, right? Did that do anything for you, Allison?
Oh, God, no, because you go in there and they're like, oh, but before you go to the temple, but in the temple, you'll see that women do have priesthood authority. And you go in there, and what do? They give you a name, and they take a little red pencil and they check off your name, just like every other damn person that's going in there on the same day. How is that priesthood authority? I thought that was ridiculous. I was like waiting for what else? What else is there?
I thought it was you're naked with washings and anointings. You're wearing a thing, and only women bless other women, and therefore it's all equal. We're all good.
No, to me that was just a matter of, well, of course we can't have men coming in here touching naked women. We have to get women to do it. That was like more a matter of, we need to be proper than anything else.
Don't you have other women that like take you through the veil, or is it only men that are on the other side of the veil and reach their hand through and pull you through?
Only men are reaching through.
Really? I thought
yes,
that there's women,
because that's representative of God.
And that's why they changed. Glenn, don't you remember the 5 points of fellowship they used to have? So these poor women back before they made those changes would have to touch like hip to hip and chest to chest. It was like,
yeah, baby.
I don't know what this is, Randy.
You don't know what this is?
No.
Seriously?
Yeah. Elaborate.
Okay. The 5 points of fellowship was something that the Mormons stole word for word, point by point from the Masons. And when you went through the veil, you used to have to touch at 5 different places. and it made you very intimately close to the person on the other side of the veil. There's a veil between you, but you're touching in a very intimate way. Not sexually, but a little too intimate. And after a while, though, they after enough complaints, they completely eliminated the 5 points of fellowship of the veil, and then I don't know if they replaced it with the patriarchal grip, or if they just made the patriarchal grip.
I think they replaced it with you putting your hand on each other's shoulder.
That's part of the patriarchal grip. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You touch the shoulder and you grip the handshake, the special handshake through the veil. But they used to have to do that with. I think they did the patriarchal grip with the 5 points of fellowship, but they changed it because it was just so uncomfortable for the women. Especially the younger women, and you got like a 75, 80-year-old guy on the other side, and you got to get really close to his stinky breath.
Yeah. Well, see, I guess the image that I have of going through the veil and going into the celestial room, I always saw women that were there like greeting and smiling. So I always assumed, because the women are on one side of the room as you're going through, and the men are on the other side of the room. I just assumed that it was the same behind the curtain as it was in front. It's all men back there.
There's always an old dude pulling me through that veil.
That doesn't make any sense. That's stupid.
Well, so you weren't impressed by the priesthood authority that women had in the temple, but I'm curious at what your reaction was as a believer, if you can answer it, of the constant putting women on this gilded pedestal. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. At the time, I thought it was great. Like, at the time, I was like, well, of course we're equal. If anything, we're above men, because we're special, and we can be mothers, and we have padded chairs in the Relief Society room.
Yeah,
that is special.
Yeah,
perks. Yeah.
So at the time, I didn't really think that much of it, but I think part of that was because I almost kind of had to actively ignore all the stuff that really pissed me off, and like push it down. So, once I let myself like get a little bit of perspective on whether or not the church, equal is not a feeling. There's the feminist Mormon thing that they like to say. Once I got some real perspective on that, I think it was like very quick, very easy to see that gilded cage is there for a reason.
Oh, that's right. It's a gilded cage, but it's disguised as a pedestal. Mm-hmm. And I think your answer really shows that it works. Like that tactic works really well, because I think it was a Pew survey found that like 90% of active Mormon women don't want the priesthood, and like a surprising high amount of men would be okay if women got the priesthood.
And I remember having that conversation with friends as a Mormon, like, what? Well, we don't want the priesthood because, and we would say things like, we don't want that kind of responsibility. Like, do you understand what happens to men if they turn away from that? Like, I don't want to have to answer to God in that way. That's horrifying. And so it was just kind of like, we get this kind of free pass that we don't have to. I don't know.
What's your take on the ordained women movement?
Okay, so part of me thinks that it's great, and that those women who feel like they want to be equal in the church, they should have a voice and they should fight. And I almost wish, like, sometimes I wish I would have stayed in longer so that I could yell with them, that I could have that voice with them, that I could be angry and I could stand up or not angry. I don't think that they're angry, but they're definitely fighting a good fight.
It's
on the one hand,
righteous indignation.
Yeah. But on the other hand, like, people need the priesthood like a fish needs to ride a horse, or it's not real. It's like, it's not a real thing to me anymore. And so I have a hard time being like, they should have that power, because it's just, well, then what?
So then we go back to, is it a power or an authority? Because I think as an authority, it is a very real thing.
Yes, that is true.
The positions in the church and the decision making and all of those things that are that women are excluded from because they don't have that authority. But yeah, as a power, I mean, that's a nice analogy, the fish riding a horse. So.
And I kind of wonder what would happen. Like, so the women would get authority, and that would be wonderful for the church as a culture. It would be wonderful for the women. It'd be wonderful for all the young, daughters growing up in the church to see that equality. That'd be amazing. But on the other hand, like, how many women would exercise this supposed power and then see, like a lot of men see, that it's really not. There's nobody behind the curtain. It's
the area,
not feeling anything.
The area where it got so uncomfortably exposed to me, but I would never acknowledge it as a believer, is when I would be driving home from work, and one of the people at home teach called me and needs a blessing, and they're really sick, mm-hmm. And I would go there, and I'd be like, oh my God, do I dare declare them to be healed? I'm not feeling that. Yeah,
I hear that from a lot of people. Like, there's nothing there.
No, you feel nothing. Like, everything is just you, and you're like unconsciously aware that, yeah, this is just me. And do I take this bold leap and just hope I get lucky that they get better? But there's also
you've got to make it contingent upon their faith.
You always put qualifiers. Yeah. You always put qualifiers in, just a CYA.
Yeah.
Well, and it's contingent upon your faith as a priesthood holder. If you're not feeling that, then that's you. That's on you. That's not the priesthood.
Pressure. That's pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
But did you guys ever get the idea conveyed to you that it's like the opposite of the gilded cage? If you take priesthood away from the men and give it to the women, or you would have to take it away from some men, or at least not the priesthood, but the authority within the keys of the priesthood. Men would become drooling idiots, right? Because what do we have? Women have motherhood. You give them priesthood too. We have nothing.
We become a bunch of Homer Simpsons.
Yes, we become Homer.
Right. Yeah, I always hated that. That was bull.
Yeah, same here.
Platitude.
I definitely heard. I can recall many conversations with women about that very thing, and women's perception of, like, well, men need the priesthood because without it, they don't. Well, I mean, what is it? What's special? Like, you'd be amazed at how sexist some of the women could be, and I probably was at times too, where you just, that's what makes them special. It's not fatherhood. It's not, like I talk about in my essay, it's not any of those characteristics that are not particular to the entire, male sex, but whatever you personally find interesting or great about men, those are not special in the church. You're special because you have the priesthood, and you have the priesthood because you have a penis. And so I also thought, kind of to play devil's advocate with it, the end all be all for women is motherhood, right, in the church. So the end all be all for men is priesthood, but because priesthood is contingent on your anatomy, is it kind of equal?
But I'm not sure I really agree with that, though. That and I wanted to ask this question because you said something in your essay, like what makes a man, mm-hmm. and that it is priesthood. Because every man gets the priesthood, it kind of levels the playing field. It doesn't add any distinction when you're talking about one man to another man. So I think there's more to it than just the priesthood making a man, and that's where I think ambitious, like people who are really ambitious and they want to have the better callings and the greater authority and rise up the ladder. I think that's more of a measure of manhood than just priesthood. But I wanted to throw that out there to you guys. And
yeah,
see
but we have the ability and the access to be ambitious. Women,
sure, if they're
ambitious, that road's shut. It's slammed shut.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. But I don't think that. Well, okay, first, what does it even mean for a man to be a man? What does that mean, to be a real man?
Well, that's what I talk about. That's what I was trying to say in my essay, that like that definition is different depending on who you're asking. For me, I talked about it, what it means to me, and that's somebody who can dig a hole and punch somebody and drink a beer really fast, but like only if they had to, or just all the things that I talk about. And I didn't talk about being sensitive. I think that that's really manly too, being really secure in your sexuality and being sensitive and listening and being kind. But I didn't talk about those things because they're typically more feminine characteristics. And maybe that's sexist of me. I don't know. I don't want to piss off any feminists, but I just think it differs depending on who you ask. Because, what do you guys think being a woman means? Like, flip it around, and maybe it's easier to define that.
I just don't think you could come up with some trite definition of what it means to be a woman, because to some women it means having sex with other women, and that's what makes them a woman. And if that makes them happy, then that's what I want for them. I want them to be free to do that. For other women, they're natural nurturers, and being a mother makes them really happy. We're all individuals. Mm-hmm. So to come up with some blanket statement just seems really lame to me.
Well, I'm not interested in like what really makes a woman or what really makes a man. But the expectations that are set up in the church culturally, like what are the things that elevates a man to a higher status and signifies manliness, manhood, and what does it for womanhood? Because I think you've got these social constructs that you could talk about that you can still knock them down and say that they're bullshit. But what are they? Because they're definitely there.
Well, for a man, being a provider, and then what comes with being a good provider is usually the more successful people in the world get the leadership positions. So being a really good provider, being a leader, even if you don't have a great calling, you are, by definition, the head of the household. So being a man means, someone who takes charge, makes decisions, and then they have the more touchy-feeling stuff where being a man means being a leader, being an example of righteousness to those around you. And to me, that's like Mormon man in a nutshell. And really being good at strategically and artistically crying at the right moments.
Yeah, right. Because you can be a manly man who cries. Definitely.
Oh, that's all part of being a real Mormon man is showing like strong feelings of your convictions. Uh-huh. And you can do that without being stripped of your manhood. In fact, it augments your manhood. If you do it the right way. I mean, we all had the guy that couldn't bear his testimony without saying, brothers and sisters. If you're just like, if you have no technique and you're just like really too emotional right from the beginning. But if you pepper it in the right moments when you're really trying to give the punch of your testimony, that's the art of being the Mormon manly crier. And that's something Glenn Beck obviously tapped into. But he wasn't very good at it.
So what do you think about all this, Bob? You've been kind of quiet.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I remember growing up in the church that the definition of a man and a woman had a lot to do with sexual orientation, just because we were, taught to just look the other way and assume gay men and gay women didn't exist. So if that were really true, then that would be a pretty easy placeholder as like a unilateral, you're either on the team or off the team, and this type of person likes this person and this type of person likes that person back, purely utilitarian and functional in that way. And then when you don't have the confusion of sexual orientation messing everything up, when it's not 100% that way, then you can start to entrench yourself in these more traditional roles because you don't have outliers or other use cases that mess it all up. You just go with the historical, Christian vision and the way society's morphed over time, or slowly become more progressive, especially in the last 50 years. But, Darwinism and people fulfill their functional needs based on their skill sets, and men were usually tougher and stronger. But as we get into this economic age where it's less about physical labor and digging a hole to plant a tree, like Allison pointed out, then that becomes less relevant. But the church was always, 50 years behind anyway, so it was relevant. It was a big deal to do. Even like the service projects that were structured, it was like, okay, ladies, let's crochet for this charity or something. But then the guys are like, we're going to go till the earth like God intended, and it's just like, what does it have to do with anything? Like, I'm sure women could probably do some of this, especially if you didn't like structure it so blatantly, like, and on purpose, every bag needs to be at least 30 pounds just to make sure that if a woman wanted to help, it wouldn't be possible.
When I was high priest group leader, I was in charge. They put me in charge of a gigantic stake-wide, better the community project. And it was so funny to see all the men. They pulled out all the power tools and they took control of painting, houses in the ghetto. And the women would come around with the sandwiches.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And I think for women, the definition, first thing is being a mother.
Yeah.
If you're not a mother in the church, then
it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think second, I would put that you're a stay-at-home mom. I think for me and my experience, that was a big deal. If you worked outside the home, you were not as much of a mother as the other mothers. And that was hard for those women who worked, who were mothers. And then I think, just being nurturing, being humble. I didn't fit in really well with the women being Mormon because I'm kind of outspoken and I kind of just don't give a shit what people think, and I'm going to say what I want to say. And
right, you were having good sex and that kind of stuff.
I'm having great sex, and that just doesn't go over well with with everybody else. Sometimes you're supposed to be kind of demure. You're supposed to be Mary-like, like following all the time,
deferential and submissive.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think outspoken women in most wards are kind of seen as a threat, whether it's conscious or unconsciously by the priesthood and by other women who followed that kind of model of what a true daughter of Zion is supposed to be like.
But then you've got like these outliers like Sherry Dew, where they're like elevated.
Yeah, but she's not a mother. She's not a mother, so it's okay for her.
But
to be outspoken and to be a leader and to own a company.
Yeah, but then why would anybody that's a woman in the church take her seriously and like have her be a voice of inspiration because she's like stands for exactly what you're not supposed to do? It's just like, how does that work?
You know how the Uchtdorf anomaly works?
Okay.
She's proof that you can try as long as you're trying. Like she would always talk about, she's trying and she's doing what she's supposed to do. And that path just it hasn't been provided, or however she would put it. That, but she was still trying, and she was still being obedient in that way. So it was okay.
Is there a sense when you're looking at somebody like Sherry Dew, like, she wasn't able to be a mother, and look at what she's made with the bum hand that she was dealt?
No, I think it's more like she wasn't able to be a mother or find a husband, so it's okay for her to have a career.
We'll give her a pass.
Yeah, because what else is she going to do? Just sit at home and do nothing? I mean,
does anyone have any theories of why? I mean, as for someone who's as believing as she is, I mean, she wrote this awful book called No Doubt.
Oh, I read that.
Yeah, it's like a pamphlet. It's like you can read it in a couple hours. I wouldn't recommend it, but does anyone have any theories, or has heard any theories of why she didn't get married? I've never seen a picture of her. Is she unattractive, or is she lesbian?
I always thought she was a lesbian.
Yeah, like a closet lesbian. That would make more sense if she's, I don't know. I mean, what does she look like? Does anyone know?
Yeah, she's
short hair.
Pretty typical. Short cauliflower head,
Cauliflower head.
I also think that she served as kind of a warning too, for like, as far as the way that women I knew viewed her. Like, if you are career minded, then you need to be careful, because it will be harder to get married. You could end up like
Sherry Do.
Like, you could end up like these women who are so focused on their career that they don't even want to seek a husband, or maybe, men are not interested in them because of that. It's confusing to Mormon men. I don't understand that.
Maybe that's why she's doubly inspiring to Mormon women. She's like a classic cautionary tale of having your priorities mixed up, but at the same time, she's such a believer that you read her words and you just can't help but be inspired if you're Mormon.
Yeah.
I had her totally miscast in my mind. I don't know what happened, but I'm looking at pictures of her, and she's pretty attractive. I mean, she could have.
She's a super smart lady.
Yeah.
Well, that's a negative.
That's true in the Mormon world.
Yes. I'm not saying it's a negative for me. I'm saying it's a negative.
I forget
in the Mormon world. Yeah, because they're threatening.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like I got to make decisions for this whole family, but my wife is better at it. That's not cool.
So have you covered everything you wanted to cover, Allison?
What about getting kicked in the nuts?
Oh, yeah.
Believe me, it's not cool.
It's not cool. I know, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's going to be cool. I know it's going to hurt. I feel like I want to have that empathy I'd like to know what that feels like, and I just have no clue.
Sweet, you're so sweet.
Have you ever been kicked in the crotch?
I would never want to give birth.
Not kicked. I mean, I've split a beam. What in gymnastics, like when you.
I wondered, is that a euphemism?
No, that's what they call it. Like, if you.
Because the beam. I thought you said split a bean, and my mind went somewhere else.
Like the balance beam.
No. Oh, beam.
You split the beam. Yeah, and that's not. I mean, it hurts. It feels like you're bleeding, but you're not. It's really scary.
Yeah, I had that happen to me once, and nearly passed out, just seeing spots and getting dizzy.
Oh, yeah,
and just
it's not that bad.
It was awful. I was like in 4th grade or something. It's
not that bad terrible. For women. I mean, for me, in my experience, it wasn't. It was just like, I wasn't going to pass out. It just hurt.
Yeah.
Well, getting kicked in the nuts, like, one of the worst things about it is it's not like stubbing your toe where it goes away quickly. It lingers and it slowly dissipates, and you just you're bent over, writhing on the ground.
I don't get the coughing thing. Why does it make you cough when that happens?
Because I think you can't breathe.
Oh. And
anytime you have really, really severe pain, like with a migraine, for some reason the body responds by vomiting. Mm-hmm. It triggers the nausea reflex.
Yeah, that happens when you have babies.
Yeah, my wife with our first child was push, puke, push, puke, until I finally yelled for somebody to get an antiemetic in here, and they did. But they tried to make my wife feel better by saying, every time you vomit, it's a free push. And she's like, fuck you!
Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I covered everything with my essay. I'm bummed that you guys don't want to. I mean, would you do it for a day?
Yeah.
Do one for a day, just see what it's like. Are you okay with that?
Not if I have to give birth.
You guys and your stupid disclaimers, just own it. Of course we'd want to be a woman for a day.
No, yeah, my vote is I'm curious enough where, as long as I'm imbued with attraction for men, I would be curious what it's like to have sex with a man, and then to reflect on it afterwards when all that's washed away, and go, because I think it would help me be more empathetic and less of a buffoon around women sometimes.
I think of it almost differently. Like, have sex with a man. Like, the first impulse I'd have in that context would be just to experience an orgasm as a woman.
Oh, you just masturbate?
That's kind of where I come from.
Yeah.
What are the differences? Because they seem so different.
I need penetration.
You don't know that. You probably need it less than you think you do as a woman.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
You're good. You're not going to.
I think I'll give Randy my day.
Randy gets 2 days.
Randy gets 2 days. Damn it. Why Randy? What are you looking at me and you're like, nah, but we don't want to go there.
I'll split it. You guys can have a day and a half. You can split my day. Yeah. I don't.
Glenn, I'm surprised at you. I thought you would be more like you'd want to experience that. You seem like you would, but no.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like it would suck.
You're just overthinking it.
I am probably.
It doesn't suck. Why do you think it would suck?
Because I know what it's like to be a guy.
Amazing. No,
Why would it's a day, dude? It's a day. Why would you not be curious to know what it's like? Because it's an experience that you can't even possibly imagine.
What if I got stuck and I couldn't get back?
Oh, come on, you're changing the thought experiment.
Love it.
Okay. You're like one of those guys when you try to do like a morality logic experiment and you keep trying to change the rules without realizing you can't change the rules.
See, here's the other thing, Allison, about me. If the other guys would have said they didn't want to, then I would have been the first one to say, "Oh yeah, sign me up."
Yeah, you're
so
contrary.
I've got to be contrarian in certain situations. So that's probably what it is. I mean,
makes more sense now.
I just don't know what I'd do. All right, so you told me after you listened to this that you felt like there were things that we left out.
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons why you said, I would add my opinion to this if you asked me to.
Yeah.
So what were the things that you thought didn't get touched on that should have been touched on?
First and foremost, as a woman in the church, it's more important that you are married than that you are a mother.
So Allison listed as number one that you're a mother.
Yeah.
But that was probably because she doesn't have the experience of being single in the church, where you lived that way for several years.
Yeah, I mean, I was told things like, if I were in your situation, I would never come to church again because I would be too embarrassed.
Who told you that?
Some idiot girl, and
I thought you said that you respected her.
No, wrong person, different person. No, some idiot girl. I was doing my calling in nursery, and we were just talking, and she just flat out informed me that if she were in my situation, having been divorced with a child, and first of all, not having been married in the temple, oh my gosh, that she would be too embarrassed to ever go to church again. And basically, I should be ashamed. Also, I had another woman who was very well educated.
She was the biochemist?
She's a biochemist, yeah. But she quit working as soon as she'd had children. They just kept having tons of kids. I think I had like 6 by the time I moved. She told me that I would be forgiven because the Lord understands my situation. Being divorced is so awful, let alone being, divorced with children. Like,
was that what she was responding to? You'd be forgiven for having divorced?
No, for working.
Oh, for working outside of the... For being a working mother.
For being a working mother.
God would forgive you for that.
Yeah, because he understands. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So for me, the first and foremost, definition of being a good woman in the church is being married.
Mm-hmm. And it has to be married in the temple.
Married in the temple, yeah. Okay. Married in the temple specifically.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And not divorced.
And not divorced. And especially not divorced with kids. Whoa.
Yeah. So what other areas did you feel were deficient in this?
I think that you all talking about being women and all the caveats of what you would want to be women. I think that, well, not you don't want to be a woman, but I think that Randy and Bob would probably, if they were honest, would be very specific about wanting to be attractive women.
So you're saying that not all women are equal?
Not in the eyes of men.
Yeah. So it's a different experience being an ugly chick than it is being a hot chick.
Yes. Very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
So talk about that.
Well, I remember I watched an interview with Dustin Hoffman about Tootsie when he was doing Tootsie, and he specifically told the makeup artist that he wanted to be attractive.
Yeah.
And they did the best they could, and he found himself extremely unattractive as a woman, and it made him cry, and it made him feel bad that that his reflection was not a person he would ever give the time of day, specifically based on their looks.
Yeah.
And it made him realize how, like, I found this very touching, made me really have a lot of respect for Dustin Hoffman, because he said it made him realize how many people in the world he was not benefiting from by basing specifically on their looks. And I don't think that a lot of men have that kind of awareness.
So if you could do that experiment, you could be a guy for a day, you'd do it?
Mm-hmm. I would, yeah, I would.
I would caution against it.
Why? Because I'd be so disappointed to go back to me. To be a woman again would just suck.
Yeah. So did that make me sound bad when I say that on there? I think it would just suck. Is that like misogyny, that I hate women? Because you're on record as saying that I'm not a chauvinist.
I don't know. I think some people could see it that way. I don't think that
you know me pretty well.
Yeah, I know you okay.
Yeah. I might not help out with the laundry very much, but...
or the dishes.
Or the dishes.
Or general housekeeping.
That's just about laziness. That's not about chauvinism.
I think that's just, like, ingrained, like, Mormon, like, upbringing, honestly. I totally...
Mormon. Really?
Yes.
All right. What's the Mormon part of not wanting to do the dishes? Is it like just expecting the...
Yeah, it's the whole, like, gender roles.
Proclamation of the family.
Exactly. It's the proclamation of the family. That's exactly right.
In the eternities, women will be doing the celestial dishes.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Pretty much. And I'll get to have 4 of them if I want.
For what?
Women. In the eternities.
Oh, as a man.
Yeah, as a man. I get to have many, like, I get to have all, and one does the dishes, one does the laundry, one does the, cooking, one does the whatever. 14 was a really rough year for me because...
Your inner feminist was awakened.
Yeah. I was, president of My Maids, and I had to be involved in all of these, bishops' meetings and things like that, and I got to see firsthand what the boys were doing versus what the girls were doing, and it was the same year that we had to do the trek, where we had to pull hand carts through the desert in Las Vegas in the summer. It was horrible. One morning we were, because we had to wake up at dawn, and we had made dinner or breakfast or whatever, and I wasn't doing anything, so I saw that the pans, like the cast iron pans or whatever that they cooked breakfast in, needed to be washed. So I was doing that, and these 2 stupid 12-year-olds came up to me. These 2 boys that were in my family group came up to me and said, "You're going to be a really great mom someday." And I was so offended by that. I thought, you stupid little shitheads. Are you kidding me?
So were they like trying to push your buttons, or were they...
No, they were being sincere. I thought, because I'm washing dishes, therefore I am going to be a good mother?
They weren't like trying to hit on you though. Maybe they were.
No. And I was so mad, and I literally put the things down that I was doing, and I walked away. I was like, fine, wash your own damn dishes, and the male leader, who was like the father of the group, he walked up to those boys and started washing the pans, and he looked at them and he said, "You didn't know a good thing when you had it." And he started washing the pans, and they said, "Why are you doing that? That's woman's work." I mean, these idiots.
But these are 12-year-old
I know. Somebody bitch slapped them for, it was ridiculous. But that was the mentality of the area that I was in.
But so why is the focus of the story though on these idiot 12-year-old boys instead of the man who stepped in?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, said, because that wasn't my experience. Like that was a rare. This man coming in doing that.
Yeah.
My dad had taught us how to shoot guns from pretty early, and I'm good at it. And Noted, by the way. Yeah, just FYI.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, and we were shooting black powder rifles as part of this trek, and I'd never shot one before, so the guy pointed to the targets that they had set up and said, "That's the easiest one." And I said, "Okay, well then I'll just, I've never shot this gun before, I'll just do that." And I hit the target, no problem. Mm-hmm. And the guy standing next to me he said, "Look, even she can do it."
Mm-hmm. And then that's when you blew his head off.
That's when I got a reload and shot the hardest target and then walked away. But I was like, even she can do it. Yeah. I was like,
this wasn't the same guy who did the dishes, I'm guessing.
No, this is somebody else. Yeah, I know. And it was just like, I had so many experiences like that. I hate Mormon men. I do. I think that they're all so.
So you think that it's a Mormon thing, or is
I do. I think it's very much a Mormon thing. I mean, there are lots of uneducated people in the world. I'm not, but I think that culturally as an accepted thing, I don't know, it's a right-wing thing maybe. Maybe it's just a right-wing crazy thing.
I think that chauvinism is much larger than Mormonism.
I do too. I do too, but like
But you're saying the Mormon culture it doesn't squash chauvinism.
No, not at all.
It supports it and validates it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Damn them.
I hate them.
Damn them to hell.
So anyway, yeah.
All right.
I hated growing up Mormon.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah. So you really hate Mormon men, and that's why you...
I married one. No, it's not, it's the Mormon culture.
You would not have liked me as an actor.
Oh, not at all.
And
not at all. I already know that.
What was there was that episode that I did, The Streaking Samurai. Yeah, I think at the end of that one that I said something like that you would have been rather put off by my...
Completely put off.
And you're like, no, it would have been completely, not rather.
Yeah,
completely.
It wouldn't have been yeah.
You wanted me to change that before I published
I did.
it.
I wanted you to put in completely. Never would have spoken to, would have been completely...
So this is an editorial correction.
Yeah.
A month or so after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. That you would have not...
I would have hated you.
You would have hated me.
I would have hated you in many, many ways.
Really? Like
yeah.
What? This is fun. This is a fun tangent. All right, you want to talk about girls' camp?
I only went to girls' camp once.
How old were you?
I was 14 again.
That 14-year-old
it was a rough year, man. Yeah. Never
be 14-year-old girl.
Seriously, it's hard.
So Bob and Randy, if you want to be a girl for a day and you get to choose the day,
14.
Don't go 14.
And make sure you're cute.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I got the stomach flu and I got to go home early. Like, that was the best part.
What was bad about girls' camp?
Well, the boys, because again, I was in, like, I knew what the boys were doing. Yeah. Like, we got sent to this armpit of a campsite in southern Utah where there really was nothing to do other than to learn how to crochet or some stupid little craft or whatever. I mean, there wasn't even really good hiking around. I mean, there wasn't anything, and you were rewarded for stupid things, like just like, the kindness award and the most happy camper and all that. It's just so stupid. It was so stupid. And there was just such this double standard of what the boys were getting to do. They were going on like a whitewater rafting trip down the Snake River, and we were going to this armpit camp in southern Utah because our budget was like $300 and their budget was like $2,500 or something ridiculous, for all, they get to do all this fun stuff because they're boys. And, for us, we had to go learn how to be kind and happy in crappy situations there's this awful stomach flu that went through the camp and I got it. And luckily I got it so bad they let me go home and I never went back.
What would you do to fill your day?
That's the point. Like, really, there was very little to do.
They didn't have like
you had
classes or talks or something that
at night they did, where you had to go and do these talks, and then the Laurels would go on their like overnight hike or whatever. But that's it. Man. I mean, that's it.
But there were like camp songs and things that you would make up, and you'd be given a camp nickname.
We had to like decorate our campsite, and we got awards for the cutest one, and that kind of thing.
So it's like preparing you to be a homemaker.
Pretty much in the wild. Yeah.
Wilderness homemaking.
Exactly.
101. Nice.
It was so stupid.
I want to ask Shaylee and Emma what their experiences have been with girls' camp. Emma's going this summer.
I know. I don't know why. I don't understand the draw there.
I don't know. I'll ask her. But so the first thing I want to do, Emma, say hello.
Hi.
And Shaylee.
Hey.
Are you guys okay with your real names being used, or should we make up like fake names? Like I could call one of you.
Shaylee is my fake name. My real name is Matilda.
Matilda and Waverly.
Waverly. Yeah. Oh, that works.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Okay.
Ugh.
So first thing I want to ask the two of you, because we had a listener named Allison who wrote an essay and recorded it about what she would do if she got to be a boy for a day. Is that something that you guys would be interested in doing and like experiencing what the world would be like? Emma, you could be in junior high as a boy. Shayla, you could be a junior in high school as a boy. Would you want to do that?
Oh yeah.
As long as everyone just had like a big old gender swap, then I would be totally fine with it.
So everybody would have to switch, not just you?
Yeah.
Well,
I would love
think it would be
catcalling
funny.
some of the hicks at my school, like as a guy. That would be great.
So that's what you would do, Shayla?
Well, actually, what I would do is I would go on a camping trip because then I would pee standing up, and that's great.
That's what you want to try? You want to try and put out
I
a
want to
campfire?
pee standing up, yeah.
You want to pee standing up? You have to do that camping, though.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. I have to be camping, and then I'm going to go and, like, I don't know. I'm going to do a lot of things.
Okay.
I definitely catcalling people. Especially if everybody's gender swapped, because then they'll be like really uncomfortable and it'll be really funny.
Well, but here's our thought experiment though. It's just you.
It's just me.
Not everybody.
Okay.
But for peeing standing up, here's a rule to remember, and it rhymes, so you know that it's true.
oh no.
If you sprinkle when you tinkle, be a sweetie, wipe the seedy.
We need to follow the rule in our house.
Oh.
That definitely sounds like something Nani made up.
No. I saw it like as a little toll painting thing in different bathrooms growing up. Okay, so Emma, what would you do if you were a boy for a day? First of all, would you do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love being a boy for a day. You know, I could like give chest bumps without it hurting.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like if it was just for a day, there's not really nothing much that I could get done, and there's no points that I could actually prove that I would want to setting out in the gender swap for a day thing. I would try to make a difference. But I couldn't because it was only a day, so it's not really like I could do much.
Okay.
I still think it'd be fun.
I feel like afterwards I would do like a whole Tiresias kind of thing.
Tiresias?
Yeah, the Greek dude.
Yeah, but you're throwing around this Greek mythology reference. You expect me to know what it is? I don't play D&D.
It's not about
I know,
D&D.
I'm
This
just
is like
teasing
Greek
you.
mythology.
I
So
should know. I'm a
Tiresias-
folklorist.
Yeah, exactly. Tiresias was a guy, and then he saw two snakes having sex. And he watched the snakes having sex. And it turns out the snakes had magical powers. So they turned Tiresias into a girl. And then years later, he had kids and a family and everything. And then years later, he saw the same two snakes having sex, and he watched them, and they turned him back into a boy. And anyway, so after all of that happened, Zeus and Hera were having an argument about who has sex better, girls or boys. Mm-hmm. And so then they talked to Tiresias, and they were like, "Oh, hey, what'd you like better?" And being a guy at that time, he's like, "Oh, guys definitely have sex way better than girls do," or not have sex, but like enjoy sex more. And then Hera got pissed and turned him blind, and then Zeus gave him the gift of prophecy. Anyway,
and that's why they have shot put and javelin in the Olympics today. I don't know. No, I don't know. That was interesting.
That's why you always look both ways before you cross the street.
Yeah, exactly.
The moral of this story is always look both ways before you cross the street. That was cool, Shaylee. I'm impressed.
That's cool. And you're impressed that I know that? I was in Antigone freshman year, and Tiresias was like a huge part of that.
I also want to talk to you about your experiences in Young Women's and summer camp and things like that. So
Love Young Women.
It was my third year of girls camp. So we went on the overnight hike for the third years. What usually happens is the stake president comes and talks to us, but at that moment his wife had a heart attack or something, so he couldn't be there. So he wrote out, typed it out exactly what he wanted this other guy to say for him. It was about a 10-minute long speech about how it is time for us to start looking for the right man to marry, and about how that's so much more important than an education right now, and it's very important for us to finish high school, but then after that, if we want to pursue an education, we should go to BYU so that we can find a righteous man to marry. And then, because as soon as you find the righteous man, then you can start having kids so that it's not too late, and so that you can get into the celestial kingdom, and so that God will love you as he loves his sons. That was 10 minutes, and we were 15. That's not...
what did you think about that when you heard that?
That's great that some girls want that, and that's awesome and everything, but That's not what girls are meant to do. Like, that's not what God wants us to do. He doesn't want us to, like, birth children. Like, that's not it. I honestly don't think that any God would care about you, like, being a baby factory.
Hera did.
Hera's...
I'm just kidding.
Actually, no, because Zeus had sex with so many women, and that was not good.
Yeah.
For Hera.
So you were upset with that message because you felt like it limited the options or the potential for women.
Especially
that there's much more that you could do.
Especially saying that having children and being a housewife is more important than getting an education.
Even with like clothing, attire, like I remember this one time in Young Women's, the teachers got really upset. And they're like, yeah, well, you know, so many women nowadays think that it's okay to wear pants to church. And even if it's just dressing, like dress slacks or something, it's not right. And they should be wearing dresses and skirts like it has been for years. And, you know, I just kind of like sit there taking all this stuff in, you know.
So the last question, if I could be a woman for a day... Would you want me to? And if so, what would you want me to experience as a woman?
I would want to experience being on your period and having a craving that you can't help but crave, and then well, I mean, you'd be able to drive and get whatever you want.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and like Emma said, I would love for you to be on your period. That would be so... Like, it would be awful for everyone, but it would be really funny.
Why would it be awful for everyone?
I think you'd be cranky.
If I was a guy, I'm sorry, I'd want to be attractive.
So you're saying you would want to be a good-looking guy, not like a fat, dopey nerd.
I honestly think that the difference...
No offense. To who?
To anyone.
Are you talking about me?
No.
Emma.
Crap, he's turning into a girl. Quick.
That was funny.
That was good.
Hey, everyone. So what did you think, huh? Another listener essay for you and a female perspective. Take that, you infant bashers, you. So look, now it's time for the closing statement where we tell you all about how you can comment on our website and how we like your 5-star ratings and your written reviews on iTunes. Like this one from GB Eland, who said, Blue Sky Mormon Podcast. This is the Breaking Bad of Mormon podcasts. Excellent editing, great human drama, and a willingness to take creative risks. Thank you for your art. Wow. Thank you. Breaking Bad, huh? We like it. But here's the thing. We also like the way that Radiolab gets listeners to record their closing credits and their ads and stuff, so we want to try and give that a shot. So if you're interested in adding your voice to the closing of our podcasts, go to our website, infantsonthrones.com, and click on the contact button up in the top right corner. You'll see a basic script and instructions, and you can record yourself and email it to us, and we'll probably use it and would like it to sound something kind of like this.
Hi, this is
your name here,
Percy Leroy Daggs IV from
where you live,
Tooele, West Dakota, and I
say something interesting or quirky about yourself.
I listen to Infants on Thrones when I'm sitting on the can whittling soap replicas of Temple Square. You can comment on this episode on the website, infantsonthrones.com, and if you really like what you hear, give the Quorum a 5-star rating and write a short review on iTunes. I did. Anyone for the closing prayer?
So thanks again for listening. Go record your closing right now. And Percy, if you really do exist, I'd love to get me one of them soap carvings.
And then Bob could say it as the patriarch voice.
Let's have Bob do it with the patriarch voice.
Oh boy, okay.
I don't know if I could bust out a sexy male voice.
Anyone? I can't even. Okay, let me try again. Anyone for the closing prayer? No, that sounded like
Keanu.
That's creepy.
That was super creepy. I don't know what happened there.
That was the Keanu Reeves, I know Kung Fu voice.
the whole spirit of anyone for the closing prayer is like I'm so glad church is over because Elders Quorum is ending, and let's get the hell out of here. Anyone for the closing prayer?
And it's also the lack of preparation. Oh crap! I forgot. I didn't assign this ahead of time. So, all right, you losers.
Because if you were a patriarch, you'd say it like, and Glenn will give us. No, it'd be Brother Glenn Ostlund will give the benediction to today's.
Not give, offer. You offer a benediction.
You lost cred points. You've been away too long.
It's a tick off the timer thing. It's
the decay. It's decay rate.
Offer.
Yeah. One of my favorite tricks, though, and I saw somebody do this once, and so I've mimicked it a million times because I thought it was so funny. Is you've got everybody around, and you look right in the eye, and you say, "Randy, would you please be quiet while Bob says the closing prayer?" And it's like this little diversion thing, and it's like, gotcha. And then you've all got like this warm little happy feeling as we say the prayer. Oh. All right.
Anyone for the closing prayer?
Yeah, well, whenever
that's even worse.
Well, it's like
this, sister.
You get so used to there has to be this formulaic way of ending things. I used to do this as a joke with one of my friends where I'd like ask him some kind of a question that I thought he'd be really interested in hearing the answer, and then as soon as he said what, I would just hang up on him. You know what I always used to ask him?
What?
What?
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.